Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoilery gush for Kingsbane by Claire Legrand. As I said, this video will have spoilers in it, so if you have not read this book, I will link my spoiler-free review on the screen. So this series is so character-driven, that's mostly what we'll be talking about in this discussion. There's obviously a lot of plot stuff too, and the world is really interesting, but the things that I really want to discuss about this are the characters and their arcs and what they're going through, particularly my girl Riel. So I really enjoyed how much angrier Riel was in here. It did feel a little sudden because I didn't feel like she was quite as angry. Like, she was definitely angry. I mean, like, the first book is called Furyborn. Like, they're angry women the whole series. But she really, like, feels like she kind of snapped between the last book and this book and is just, like, mad at everyone. And I sort of love that Claire Legrand just, like, embraces that with Riel and doesn't really try to make her, like, forgivable or like likable at times, because there's so many times during this that I'm just like, you're such a brat. Like, there's so many times that she's just like, I just want to kill everyone. You guys are beneath me. Do you know how hard it is? Like, she lies a lot. And I just kind of love that Claire Legrand like leaned into that for her. What I did struggle with, and I mentioned this in my review as far as the romance is Audric is so good and so just like wonderful that I'm like, why are you putting up with this with her? Like, not that I want them to break up, because it's not like I don't pull for them. It doesn't quite click with me because I'm like, I like that they're opposites in that way, and you know, obviously that affects Eliana because she kind of has a bit of both of them in her and all that, but he's so good that I'm like, you can't see what's happening here. Like, I know that she's lying and she's manipulative and all of that, but like, you're not seeing this. And I guess we have, as the readers, a better perspective because we're in her head and she's hiding a lot of this from him out of a lot of like guilt and shame and stuff. But there's just times that she does things that I don't feel like she gets a lot of pushback from the characters around her, and I wanted her to be put in her place like a little bit, and maybe that'll happen more in the last book, I don't know, but I just wanted her to be like, just put in her place a little bit more. I did like that there was a letter from the one prince to Audric, the guy that's constantly writing him letters throughout all of the chapter starters, and he did say in there, due to his research of the two queens, to not treat Riel like she could go either way because the prophecy sort of created a false dichotomy. And that was one of the only letters that really stuck out to me from him, of like, don't push her in either direction. So I kind of like, again, that like Riel push back at them because they do try to control her at times and like don't quite trust her, but like she isn't quite to be trusted. But I do like seeing how a lot of the way that people have treated her over her life kind of pushed her in the direction that it pushed her in. Like, it makes sense. It's a villain origin that makes sense to me instead of some of these more like rushed villain stories that we get. But I do like that that letter in particular was like, don't create this false dichotomy. And I'm almost kind of wondering if the series is going to make it so that's like they're both kind of both queens, if that makes sense, instead of it being like one versus the other. Like, I kind of feel like in the end of all this, they're both gonna have to like team together instead of one being like the bad one and one being the good one, but we'll see. As far as Eliana needing castings, I thought that was interesting. I liked how Eliana and Riel's magic is similar but very different, and that Eliana has been more of like this hidden magic, so she needs the castings to work it properly and is just very leery of the whole thing, where Riel's always been like comfortable with her magic even though it's been very dangerous. So the whole castings element I'm intrigued by, but I don't really know where that's going to go. But I like how we brought in Eliana needing castings while also seeing the castings of all of the saints and bringing those in. And it just was an interesting thing. I mentioned this in my review that I feel like this book is constantly towing the line of making you hopeful that Riel's not going to go down the path that she does go down, but then also like filling you with dread that she's going down the path you know she's going to go down. And I feel like the castings are a big part of that, because we get this like, you need these castings to repair the wall, and you're like, she's not going to repair the wall. She's going to use them to tear them down. And then you have Eliana having castings in order to like build it back up or like save the world, and Riel had castings of other people to tear the world apart. So I just like the mirroring that's done with these two girls. And as far as Eliana's story, when Harkin came back, I knew that was going to happen, because in book one you don't see his body, you don't see him die, and they like abandon him. I'm like, he's gonna come back. But I like how it was handled, because it could have very well been a love triangle situation with them, and it kind of isn't. Like, she just kind of says when he takes her away that like she can never forgive him, and like their relationship's not like that anymore, but he still holds like a flame for her, but she's just like, you know what, no, and she's way more into Simon. So I like how that's handled instead of it being a very complicated like love triangle situation, because then you'd have just like all of these sort of, you'd have a love triangle with them and then a love triangle with like Corian and Audric and Riel. It would just be a lot. So I'm glad that that was kind of cut out. And the connection too between the two timelines, I think I mentioned this in my Furyborn review, I'm pretty sure, but Lou is Zara, right? She is, right? Because there's a line in here where Corian's about to say what Lou's real name is, because obviously that's not really her name, and I'm like, he would have said Zara, and then the reader would know, but he gets cut off. So I'm pretty sure like that's another through thread too. I'm intrigued because it's like she loses her body and blah blah blah. So I keep making connections like this, like Lou is Zara, right? So I'm kind of waiting for that reveal in the final book as well. I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna happen. So as far as Eliana's like romances and stuff, because I touched on Harkin a bit, one thing I really liked is that this is one of the only, I think possibly the only book / only YA book for sure that I've read where a character is hooked up with someone else and they have not become a love interest. So we have Eliana hook up with Jessamine, and then it's like there's not romantic interest there. Like it doesn't become like a, oh now we're into each other. Like they just are like, we hooked up. And there's no drama, and it's so wonderful. I was like, thank you for having there be like attraction there, but it not be romantic, and they're totally fine with it. And she still just has her thing going on with Simon, and they hooked up once and it was fine. Loved that. But as far as Eliana and Simon, I just can't get invested in them. I liked them a little bit more on reread of Furyborn when I read it a couple months ago, but it weirds me out because he was like, what, 6 or 7 when he took her as a baby through time. So there's a 6 or 7 year age gap. She's a late teen. He's a mid to late 20 something. I don't like that. I don't like that. And then how he says, you know, he was always thinking about her, like when they do eventually hook up and he's like, I was always thinking about you, and I could like sense you, and like I've always been like thinking about you, sort of like this. I was like, you knew her as a baby. Like I don't like, I want to like it because part of me is like, okay, I like that the book is saying, you know, like they're drawn to each other because they're both from home back then, but I just don't like his sort of like obsession with her. Like I just think it's really creepy. And then with everything that happens with him and the twist with him, I'm just like, I just don't like it. So I'm kind of okay with the twist because I didn't like their dynamic anyway, but I'm also kind of like a little upset about it. Let's get into that. So I loved the time travel butterfly effect situation. When they said they were gonna time travel, I didn't think it'd be in this book. So it's interesting that like they did, and obviously that's affected things. Jessamine's against them. Didn't expect that to happen. Most things are the same, but like what happened to make Jessamine, like the butterfly effect of that I think is so interesting. I love the whole butterfly effect things with time travel. So is the time travel what made Simon ultimately be with the Empire? Because I feel like the Simon twist of being with the Empire was not foreshadowed, like at all. And I think she's foreshadowed a lot of stuff in this book that I don't feel like that twist wouldn't have been foreshadowed if he was always with the Empire. So it makes me wonder, because he was still on that side, if the time travel messed that up somehow. Because she says after she gets back about like seeing his eyes like blue fire, and I'm not sure if she mentioned his eyes being like that before. Maybe she did, but it's something that I noticed, and it was almost like pointed out more in this book after she came back from time traveling. So I'm like, is that why? Like, because I just don't feel like he was that good of a like spot, you know, like a double agent. Like I feel like there would have been foreshadowing, because again, Claire Legrand does some good foreshadowing. So I'm like, I think that was a time travel mix-up, and that will explain it. I don't know. But I was definitely very shocked by the ending. I definitely didn't see that coming. So I enjoyed that I had that shock factor. But again, I wasn't super invested because I don't really like the Simon relationship, but I also, again, feel like it wasn't quite foreshadowed, so we'll see. Also liked that we got to see like Rial, you know, what pushed her over, which is just so sucky because it's like Corian did that. Everyone, like you see the cards falling, you see everything falling apart, and you're like, like it's like watching a train wreck, because it's like he's been saying that everyone's going to turn away from her, but he makes them turn away from her by showing them this thing, and because she lied and all this stuff. So seeing her go to him, and it means like the next book she's going to be like full villain, is going to be really fun. And I hope next book she gets like a redemption situation, a redemption arc. I do feel like at the end that the two queens are going to team up. Like I just don't feel like, especially with that whole like false dichotomy line, I feel like it's not going to be one destroying the other. I feel like they're going to have to come together in some way. So I'm hoping that like Eliana coming back will show Rial and they can team up, and like maybe things won't be bad. I don't know, like I don't know how we're gonna do this though. Like with the whole time travel thing, it's just like, how are they gonna time travel and then not have her Eliana lose all the people that she knew from the future? Like a little complicated. So I'm very excited for the final book. I will definitely be pre-ordering it and reading it as soon as possible so I don't forget all the stuff that happened here. So comment below, let me know your thoughts on Kingsbane. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.